Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I am so excited to be here with Nicole Olsthoorn. Nicole is a leading psychic medium and oracle, also known as the Celtic Goddess, and spiritual mentor for highly conscious femme leaders of the new earth. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Nicole.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to dive in. I'd love to start for you to just kind of tell us about your journey and how you got into the work that you do today.
Oh gosh. Like I knew this question was coming, but I thought about this question beforehand, and I get this question a lot. And I'm always like when people ask me how did I get into this work, I'm always tempted to say, I don't think I ever got out of it. It's just something that mediumship and my psychic abilities have always just been there for me. Yes, I've gone through my own process of like showing them and stepping into them, but they have always been there with me. So I don't feel like I've really gotten into this. But
Mhm.
if you ask me about my journey, um, the thing that I felt called to share, which is I always love telling this story, and I'll try and it's a long story, but I'll try and keep it as short as possible. Is that in when was this? 2015. I lived in the Netherlands. I was born and bred in the Netherlands.
Mhm.
And at the time I had an apartment, but I was in a really bad financial situation. So I had not been able to pay the mortgage for like over a year. I was severely overweight as well, physically unhealthy. I was dragging myself along. I was feeling very sorry for myself, as in like I wasn't really moving forward anywhere. I was alone and I really wanted to deeply, deeply, deeply desired a relationship. I wanted it so bad that it hurt. It was like so painful. Um, so that kind of led me into a spiral of a lot of negative thinking, even though I started my journey into self-development around that time as well. It's like something needs to change here. So I decided to sign up for a training at the time called Pioneers Training. And that training was like, it was a training like it was for pioneers, people who were here to create something new, to create something that not a lot of people were aware of, and to play a certain role or have a certain mission in life. And when I read that, everything resonated within me. It's like, oh my God, like that is me. That is like me to the T. So I jumped in and signed up, and that was really the first time I committed to myself and to my path and saying, okay, listen, you know what? I'm a pioneer. Like if I don't feel like I belong in this world, which I didn't at the time, that actually means I'm here to create a new one. And that just hit me at that time. It's like I need to do this. So all of that happened at the same time. And then um close to the end, I think, of that training, I found myself that my home was being sold. So I had to move out, and I didn't know where I needed to go. I didn't have any money, or hardly any money. I had no income, nothing. And I remember still like lying on the floor of my apartment, just like in one of those fetal positions. I just did not know what to do anymore. And I was crying, crying, crying so much. And that actually, without knowing it then, but in hindsight, that was me just fully surrendering to not knowing and just saying, without saying it, I said, please, God, Goddess, universe, whatever is out there, please help me. I can't do this. I can't do this on my own. And I heard a really, it was a loving voice, but it was also a very strong voice, like a very, like no messing around kind of voice. And it said, you've got to reach out for help, contact the women in that training that you're in and reach out for help. So I shared with them what was going on, and the one who was hosting the training said, okay, I want to see you tomorrow, like you have to come over. We're going to walk in the forest, and you have to come, you just have to come. It's like, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. So I went there. We had a walk in the forest, and she sat me down on a bench, and I still remember it today. And she guided me into a deep meditation. And in that meditation, I received a vision. And that vision was so beautiful. And it opened my heart that I had tears just streaming down my face. And I was so moved by what I saw. And in that vision, I saw a home, a house, like a literal house, but a home, with rolling green hills on one side and rugged cliff sides. Yeah, rugged cliffs on the other side. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in the Netherlands or if you know anything of the Netherlands, but the Netherlands is about the flattest country in the world. So there are no rolling green hills there. There are no rugged cliff sides. So I instantly knew that home was not in this country. But it moved me so much. And so I got out of this meditation crying. She's like, so, like, what's going on? It's like, well, I saw this vision. So now what? And without thinking, I said, I don't know how, but I know I need to find this place. I still get goosebumps as I'm saying it. And she's like, so how are you going to do that? It's like, well, my apartment is already being sold. I have to move out in like, I think it was 4 weeks later. I'm going to contact the next owner and ask if he wants to have all my furniture, sell everything, reduce everything. And then I'm just going to find it. I don't know where it is, but I need to go find it. And so that's what I did. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't dare tell my parents, like, oh my goodness, no. I didn't want anyone to sort of put seeds of doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And the next owner bought all my furniture, everything. So all of a sudden I had a bit of cash, and I sold everything else that all the little things, got rid of everything, had a laptop and a backpack, and I hit the road. And 9 months later, I found myself in Wales, which is in the United Kingdom. And I was driving in a bus at the time, traveling in a bus, and we were driving down along the beach and then up the hill again on the other side. And on the other side, as we were driving up, I was like, I could feel something stirring in the air. It's like something is changing. Now, mind you, I've been like living without a home, traveling from the Netherlands to France, to Spain, to Greece, like all over Europe for 9 months. That's a whole other story how I manifested that. But so we drive up this road, and I feel something stirring, like my whole energy is buzzing. And all of a sudden I see rolling green hills on one side and rugged cliff sides on the other side. And I recognized the vision and I cried again. And that same voice came back. And all it said was, welcome home. Welcome home.
Is that where you live now?
No, it's where I lived for the last 6 years. And now I'm actually being guided to move to another place, still in the UK. But that's why I'm in between homes again now. So I'm not actually in my own home. But yeah, no, I lived in West Wales for about 6 years, and now England is calling me. So I'm moving there. So that's how I, like, if you ask me what's my journey, then that's it. And you can also say that with that complete trust in my vision and in my own psychic abilities, I guess that's how I got into the work. It's like, okay, this is me really committing to my vision, not to the tangible things that we see, but to what I have seen here with my third eye, with my mind's eye. So that's the story.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I love that. We're always being guided, and sometimes it feels so good to hear stories of like evidence of that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So could you tell us about the differences between masculine and feminine operating systems?
I can. So here's what I found when I started to build my offline and online practice as a psychic medium, is I discovered that the people who came to me or wanted to work with me, who are also all women, I work with men occasionally too, if they feel a resonance with my work, but women mainly, they're all here to create something new. right? You're one of them. You feel it. You feel in your bones. It's like, you know what? I'm here to create something new. You can call it new earth, new paradigm, whatever it is, but it's a whole new way of operating.
Mhm.
And I realized that the practice, the women and the men that were coming to me, they wanted to really sink into their psychic abilities and lean more into that, but they were not yet in the right. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong, but they were not in the operating system yet that would fully support their psychic abilities.
Mhm.
So I took a step back and I was like, okay, how does this work? And the terms that came up for me were masculine and feminine operating systems. And I want to really disclaim here that masculine and feminine hasn't got anything to do with men and women. We all have those two energies within us. But when I talk about masculine operating systems, I always explain it this way. It's like for some people, it works really well to have a step-by-step plan. So if you have a step-by-step plan, if you want to go from point A to point D, and somebody says, hey, you know what? I've done that exact same thing. So here's a step-by-step plan. I can get you from A to B to C to D. Come and join me. You know, this is what I do, and you'll have amazing results. And you go, okay, great, let's go. And that works wonders for you. That's a very linear, very logical approach, which is a fairly masculine energy approach. Whereas the feminine energy is a much more circular approach, and it's a much more, it's not linear. Like it's circular and it flows. I call it the feminine flow in the masculine mind, because the masculine mind is very much from up here as well. Like, okay, so you want to go to point D or point Z or whatever, and you make a plan and you follow the steps and you get there easy. But if you're not operating that way, that doesn't work for you. It can work for you. There are things in my life where I know that that definitely works. You know, if I want to get out of the door in the morning and I want to make sure that I look good, I know that I want to shower, I want to dress, I want to have breakfast, and I want to put my makeup on. Step by step plan. I can shuffle them around, but pretty sure I need to shower first before I dress myself, and you know, all those things. So there's a place for that. But when it comes to actually operating in my business, in my relationships, and most of my life, especially when it comes to the way I want to lead my life, that doesn't make sense to me. Like if I create an offer and I'm going to say, I can't promise you where you're going to be 6 months from now, but I can promise you that you will get closer to yourself. You get closer to who you are in true essence, to your divinity, as I call it, and to leading from that place from within, from that inner knowing. That I can promise you. But what that looks like in the outside world, I don't know. I can't promise you how much. Like if you have more money or a beautiful, sexy man in your bed, or I don't know, like a new dream house, because the feminine doesn't have that timeline that she operates on. Now this can mean that it takes longer, but it can also mean that it takes shorter. So this is the fun thing, is if you let go of all the time, the linear time frame, and you start really listening to what I call your heart, body, soul, because it can. I find that some women connect when I say listen to your heart, some say listen to your body, some say listen to your soul. So I say your heart, body, soul. You feel it. You feel the right way. You feel your way through life, so to say, and you can feel your way through business in that same way too. I have to say, feeling your way in business, it's very important to have masculine structure set up before you do that. So that's a side note. That's but feeling your way through that in that sense is what I call your feminine operating system. And I've discovered that that is the way I operate. It makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to probably half of the population, but it does make sense to me. And because it makes sense to me and it feels right for me, things flow and move and go. And 9 out of 10 times, things come to me earlier than later. So, you know, it's amazing how things just show up within a month or 2 months. Whereas if I would have set a linear time frame, my mind would have gone, I don't know if I've been able to do that like in 6 months. And then here it is 2 months later. So yeah, that's a fun part.
I love that. I feel like when you are tapped into that energy too, at least in my experience, the things that come to you are like way better than what you even could imagine. And it's
Yeah,
like, I didn't even dream this big. How is this my life? You know, that's the
yeah,
kind of things that happen
yeah.
when you do tap into the flow. And I totally agree with you on like the business thing. Like we do have to have the masculine structure in place. Um, but once you get that structure, being able to flow within it, oh my gosh, it's magic.
So fun, isn't it?
It's
And I
so
find
fun.
that, but also the structure, even that is not set in stone. Like for some people, having a Facebook group is a structure, and that's enough for them. I
Yeah.
knew, like, and they don't need a website. They don't need anything else. I know I need a website. I need to have some form of structure, some form of outline of my program, like some sort of text. Um, I'm a writer as well, so that's important for me. It's the way it feels aligned for me. But if I then go telling around the world saying, you know, this is what you need for business to succeed, I would be lying because it might not work for you, but it works for me.
Yeah. Yes. I agree with
Yeah,
that. You have to find what works for you and kind of like the right balance. And I'm with you. I do like to have a little bit of structure. I like to have a website. I have a website. I have when I do a program, I have an outline, just little things like that. And you know, I have a commitment to post a reel a day, but it's like I don't know what the reel is gonna be, you know. So you get to like within the
yeah.
structure. Yeah, I love that. You say in a post, walking the priestess path doesn't mean you meditate all day and live like a celibate nun. It means you choose what you are devoting your life to. So get clear and start walking. How do
Yeah.
you help clients to gain clarity around kind of what their purpose is?
Well, with that, with what we just said, that's an interesting question, Sarah. How do you do that?
How do you do that?
Anyway, how do you do it?
Intuitively.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Intuitively. This is where my psychic abilities come in. And I'm a firm believer that we all have psychic abilities. We all have. It starts with intuition, and if you expand that and you grow into it, they can become psychic if you want to. So that's where my psychic abilities come in. And one of the things that I have noticed for myself is a little trick is this is what we do in my one-on-one containers. I don't do this in all my containers, but it's what I do in my one-on-one container. I guide women through the cycles of the moon. So I use the cycles of the moon as my framework, like the framework that we just said, like that we need. Instead of the months, I use the cycles of the moon. Now, why do I do that? It's not necessarily because I'm a moon worshiper, even though I very much appreciate the beauty of the moon, but it's to get your mind out of the time frame that you're used to. So if you're used to the months, I want to get you out of that time frame and get you in a different kind of mindset. I want to kind of derail your mind a little bit. So we start working with the cycles of the moon, which is just another framework, which also happens to be connected to our cycles. So there's a double whammy there, but it really helps. It really helps to get you out of your mind and more into your heart, body, soul.
Yeah.
Feel more, just because we kind of crack open your mind. Basically, it's like, what the hell? Like, oh, I have to look into a different time frame. And so that disruption just creates a little opening, for new light to come in. And then something that I've noticed, I don't actually have to do anything for this, but if you hang out with me long enough, your psychic abilities will go through the roof. It's just a code I have. It's like it just happens. So yeah.
I love that. This isn't a question that I wrote down for you, but I'd like to ask it nonetheless. I have known people who kind of just due to life events, a lot of times a tragedy, suddenly woke up to having like psychic abilities, but it wasn't good for them. Like they didn't know how to have any kind of boundaries around it. What would you have to say about that? Like somebody who's just discovering, I mean, like you said, we all have psychic abilities to varying degrees, but how do we use them in a way that doesn't like harm us?
Hmm. Well, first of all, thank you for asking that question and going off script a little bit there almost. Like it's not that we're really scripted anyway, but no, I love that. I love that question. And it's I don't get that question a lot, which is interesting, because I can imagine that there can be fear around this kind of experience happening. And especially if you've had that experience, it can be traumatizing in a sense, like if you have that kind of fear. So there are different, the way I see it, let me just say it that way. The way I see it, that is that just like there are different people in our life, there's different frequencies of people that you connect with. There's different frequencies of realms and dimensions that you connect with.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're bad or they're necessarily scary, but in the same way that we have to go through our process here in the three-dimensional reality to be very honest with ourselves and say, okay, who of the people around me are nurturing me and are nourishing my soul, and which ones don't feel aligned for me? So it's a matter of setting your boundaries with those people, and you don't have to block them out of your life necessarily, unless they're really like it's dangerous and stuff, but you learn how to set your boundaries, and you do that by loving yourself so much that you become clear about who you are, what you prefer, what you need to honor your energy, to honor your time, to honor the space that you need. And you set that, you make sure that that's in place. Now, you might not always make friends doing that, but it's needed and it serves you, and you know that it serves you. And so the same thing you can do with the other side, so to say, with higher realms and dimensions. So one of the things that I have made very clear at some point is I only want to connect with what this is literally higher dimensions, realms and dimensions. So I only want to connect with the realms and dimensions that come from divine love and light. I don't necessarily believe that there are realms that don't come from divine love and light, but they can be perceived that way if we're not in a good space. So it's also like if you have that resonance of fear in you because of the way that paranormal activities or psychic abilities are for a number of, I was going to say centuries, but that's a little long, but have been portrayed in movies and films as something that you have to be scary of, that is dangerous, that is a sin, religious. Oh my goodness, it's, Whereas in truth, it's all source energy. It's all God, Goddess. It's all divine. It just comes to you. It can come to you in different realms and dimensions because there's different ways that God wants to speak to you. And so it can come in the frequency of angels. It can come in the frequency of goddesses and deities. It can come in the frequency of the fairies, of the fairy realm, of starseeds, of what else do we have? Of spirit animals, of ascended masters, of so many different ways. And then there's deceased loved ones. That was the one I was reaching for, because that's usually the first thing that people think of when they think about mediumship. It's like, oh my God, these ghosts and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, but truly, it's only a problem if there's something in you that and I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone who has been through a traumatic experience, but it's just like somebody in three-dimensional reality can scare you. So can another realm and dimension, but it's the same kind. There's no difference there. You know what I mean? Like the same steps are needed for you you set your boundaries. You set that. It's energetic boundaries, emotional boundaries.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It's really helpful. I've had a couple of clients, people that are drawn to me are kind of like already on that level a lot of times, but I've had a couple of clients where after like a tragedy, they suddenly realized they have these psychic abilities, but like they can't turn it off and they can't get any rest and they can't get away from it. And they're getting messages all the time. And my answer is similar to yours of like, you have to set energetic boundaries, but you definitely you went a lot deeper with it. And I think that's super helpful to realize like, we also have power especially if we're receiving psychic messages, like we have power in that realm as well. We're not like helpless or victims.
No, because we're all non-physical and physical beings. So the bigger part of us is non-physical, which means that we actually have more power in that realm than physical. which is funny if you think about it. And also something when you just spoke, something that I heard very clearly is that if something like this happens, like a traumatic event, whenever someone experiences having difficulties with the non-physical realm, it's usually because they have difficulties in the physical realm too. So there can be it's not like those two are very much like how do you say it, growing together at the same time. I've noticed this. I've noticed when I was still clearing out ghosts of my past, like I had to, like all the neatly rounding off things from the past, gone through that whole process of clearing that for myself and forgiveness work and all of that. That was the moment where I actually almost felt hunted from in the other realm. Whereas I'm like, actually, no, hold on. It's because I'm allowing my past to hold me back, and I have things in my past that I need to clear out in this third dimensional reality. And the moment I started to do that, the feeling of being haunted and literally disappeared. So I was no longer in resonance with those kind of energies anymore, and not in this dimension and not in the non-physical dimension. So they very much go at the same pace.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so true. We could have a whole podcast just on that.
We can.
I was reading this post where you were talking about a sacred oil ceremony that you did. And would you tell us a little bit about that? That sounded so yummy.
It is very yummy. I'll be very honest with you. I haven't done one before.
What? You're just going to. Are you going to soon?
I'm going to.
Yay!
Yeah, I like essential oils have been calling my name for a number of years now, and when they first got into my life, I resisted them so much, but I now know it's like, oh my goodness, I only resisted them because that I just love them so much, and I didn't believe that I was worthy of so much joy and pleasure and everything that they give me. And then when I started to invite them into my life more and more and more, it became clear. It's like, oh, hold on, this is actually connection. This is connected to my life purpose, to my soul mission, even. Like there's a whole vision behind this. So I've taken the time to really receive that vision and land in that vision. And they started to speak to me earlier, but the vision really became clear in January of this year when the Council of Light, and Council of Light is the Galactic Federation, or federation that tends after our universe. So I'm talking starseeds here. And the Council of Light contacted me and invited me to lead a mission. And then we called the mission Opening the Higher Chakra of the World. And I was like, well, what does it mean? Okay. Like, I'm always excited. Like, okay, sounds great. But I'm like, this sounds like a proper commitment. Like, can you tell me a little bit more? So that's another thing, if you're talking about setting boundaries, just because a spirit tells you to do something doesn't mean you have to accept it. You have a choice. So, this was an invitation. I was asked to do this. I was like, okay, let me just tell me more. What does it mean? And now more and more information is like I've managed to unravel that and receive more and more of it. And essential oils are a part of that for me because they so deeply anchor in the feminine energy. So everything that I do on the astral planes, the oils really anchor that in, because for me, the fragrances of the oils have a very somatic effect. And this is where aromatherapy comes from, right? The whole idea of aromatherapy is exactly that. And so that it works for two ways. One way is that certain oils have an anchoring in effect. So the moment I smell them, I feel my heart open. I feel my body relax. I feel my womb open. And that's very good when you've done great extension work to anchor in and to calm down your nervous system. So that's really supportive.
What's your favorite oil for that?
There's a number of different ones, but the ones I've worked with a lot over the last year actually is an oil blend called Air. I work with doTERRA essential oils, and they have an oil blend called Air. And I had a lot of grief around my heart with concern to the mother wound. And so Air really helped me open up my lungs. And the moment I breathed that, it's like I could just feel my heart open, and I could allow the pain and the grief to come out and just cry it out. And that has been super, super helpful. I would not have, like, I was going to say, I would not have been able to do it if I did not have that oil having that effect on me. So that is one that really works wonders. But then there are also oils. This is the other part of it, and this is really what I want to dive into in the sacred oil ceremonies. Is that essential oils are ancient old. Think about ancient Egypt, right? Think about the pharaohs. They had essential oils at the time. Think about it being used in religious ceremonies. Think about even the Bible actually describes a lot of different essential oils, myrrh and all of those things being used for religious purposes. Yes. So they go back centuries, even before that, right? Now imagine, this really gets me giddy excited. Now imagine that you have lived, you've had a past life somewhere in that lifetime somewhere, right? Or one of your ancestors had, and it's been passed down. You know, there's many different ways that you can experience this. Taking into consideration that time actually doesn't even exist. I'm going a bit out here, but you know what? Just let's say you had a past life there. Then what if those frequencies, what if those scents of those oils have anchored certain memories in you, into your body, but also in your soul experience? So in the same way that we can have traumatic experience from past lives, that means we can also have really beautiful experiences, very sacred experiences. And oils were used in religious ways, but also medicinal ways and beautification ways, ceremonial ways. Mm-hmm. So I've discovered that some essential oils actually take me back to invoking memories from past lives, parallel lives, where all of a sudden I see myself sitting somewhere as a priestess, holding space for other women, or I'm in a red tent somewhere. So, and it's amazing the kind of wisdom that comes through, seeping through that way. So this is what I know now about the oil ceremonies. I'm going to host my first one in September coming up. I'm not sure when this podcast is launched, by the way, but it's it's coming.
It'll be probably before. Well, I don't know actually, because it's almost September.
Yeah.
Like, where's the time going?
It's probably around the equinox. It's called Awakening Avalon, and so Avalon is one of the lost lands that on the Celtic land. This is where the whole Celtic thing comes in again. It's all woven together.
Oh, I love it.
I know. And so there's this lost land of Avalon, which is one of the it's called officially it's like methodology, but so many of us feel a resonance with that, not just in methodology. But so there's a lot of essential oil use in that. I'm tempted to call it civilization, but it doesn't quite feel like the right word. Realm, maybe. Land. I haven't really figured out the right term for that yet. So that's what we're going to do during the first oil ceremony. And we're going to use magnolia. I felt called to set it next to my laptop. So that's the one we're using.
God, that smells amazing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So cool. Yeah. So then the people that participate in the ceremony, they can just order the oil from you ahead of time.
Yeah, so doTERRA has their own ordering system. So there's a number of ways they can do it. You don't have to purchase the oil to partake in the ceremony. I kind of always want to leave that option open if people don't want to.
Yeah.
There's many scientific studies even that say that you can have even just looking at the picture of nature already can have an effect on your brain. So if you want to join the ceremony just by having a picture of a beautiful magnolia flower, you know, I have some that I'm going to share with them as well. Great, you know, you're more than welcome to do so. But if you want to have the full experience, it's possible to order the oils either through doTERRA. I have that all on my website, sitting on my website.
Okay.
To order it for wholesale price, or you can choose to create an account with me as well, become part of my Team Avalon. Team Avalon is the name of my, for everyone who steps in my doTERRA family.
So awesome.
And then you get 25% discount of all your purchases. So you could choose, if you wanted to do that, you could choose to do that as well. If you already know that you want to purchase more, because I'm probably going to do more of those ceremonies.
Oh
in person as well, like online, in person. Yeah, there's a whole world that wants to open up there. So if people, like, I know there's already quite a few women who say, oh, I love it, like tied into the priestess lineage and all of that. And even using the oils to unearth some of the wisdom that has been stored in the land, like the actual Celtic land, not just within us and our memories, but the earth herself holds memories too. So in future times, I'm gonna weave the oils in with that to unearth like wisdom from the Celtic land, from the earth as well. So
that's so beautiful. I really like that. I mean, I have a lot of people in my life that are into essential oils. I love them. But I've always heard of it in like, and this is valuable too, like very practical. Like this is what you can use for a cleaning product. This is what you can use if you're getting a cold. But like this is a whole different element. And I really, really like that.
This is one of the reasons when I first started them, I did actually the community, the family that I'm a part of within doTERRA actually has a beautiful leader, so to say, who very much speaks about the metaphysical aspects and the spiritual aspects of the oils too. So that inspired me a lot. But then I also realized, like, no, there is something else. Like, I want to weave my own vision into this. And my mediumship, again, you know, I work a lot with wisdom from other realms dimensions, higher realms dimensions, and that includes past life memories, like lost lands of Atlantis, Avalon, Lemuria. Like that's, I love diving into them.
Yeah.
And just imagine, like, this is, just think about those times when there was no electricity, there was nothing around but nature. Yeah. How do you hold ceremony? How do you heal your wounds? There was nothing. You had to go into nature. You had to find the right plants. You had to find the right medicinal herbs for your cures. There's so much wisdom there, so much. And now we have all those beautiful products and things and medicinal and ceremonial and beautification products, so to say, that they had back then. We have them now again, but like available in little roller bottles.
So convenient.
I know. And what I love about doTERRA, and I mean, this is not to bash any other oil companies, because I have not even done any research in other oil companies. So I'm not bashing anyone.
Yeah.
But what I love about doTERRA is that they, because I've watched them for a number of years, it's like I want to make sure that I like this company and not just attach my name to a company that is, you know, looks great on the outside, but what does it work on the inside?
Yeah.
I see with how much respect and reference they work, not just for the Mother Earth and the resources, but also for the people. Like they create work opportunities for people to produce all the oils. Mm-hmm. So they pay good wages. They create. They give responsibility to the farmers. Like everything is set up as beautiful, with as much respect for people, for the planet, for Mother Nature. the reference for that is amazing, absolutely amazing. And what they also do is they, how do you say that? They measure the purity of the oil along the distribution line. So sometimes when an oil is produced, what can happen before it ends up in the store is that along the line, other distributors, there you go. Sorry, sometimes you, sometimes I'm like, English is not my first language, but yeah. Distributors, they want to make more profit. So what they do is like, you know what? I have a lavender oil here. What if I just add a little bit more of the cheaper olive oil or coconut oil, jojoba oil? It still smells like lavender, but it's just a little bit thinner, so I can sell just a little bit more. So if that happens 2 or 3 times down the line, then you end up with an oil that's, yeah, it has lavender oil in it, but it's not really pure. Whereas doTERRA actually tests every time, every day. They have it set up, and it's guarantee their purity. What you get is guaranteed pure essential oil. So
yeah, I love that.
You can tell I'm a fan.
I've heard good things about doTERRA. I have clients that sell doTERRA and Young Living, and so it's always like interesting to hear. I think they're both great companies, but it's always interesting to hear, like, you know, I love a company that stands by their product. I think that's super important.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't know anything about the other companies. I just know that I love this one.
Yeah. That's all you need to know.
That's all I need to know. Do you work with essential oils, Sarah?
Yeah, I use them in my practice, and I personally I use them. I'd like to get into it more, but I just haven't yet. I will.
It's I imagine as a massage therapist, you work a lot with aroma and that you see the effect of that has on your clients.
Yeah. I use it pretty much every day in my room, on my hot towels and my diffuser. But I want to learn more. I think so much got lost when we were like burning the witches and just crushing natural medicine in favor of Western medicine. And I think that we are really reclaiming that.
Yeah.
And that excites me a lot, because I think people can have better outcomes with no side effects if they just go to nature, like you said.
Yeah. But learning to trust your inner wisdom, because it's an inner wisdom.
It's intuitive. Like, it's very intuitive.
Exactly. Like, what do I need, and how do I use that? So yeah, this is part of, again, trusting your psychic abilities, trusting your intuition. So it's just another part of what I weave in. It's magical.
It is magical. I love that so much. So this is my favorite question, and my favorite post of yours. You said, psychics, I love this post so much. Psychics, mediums, oracles, priestesses, witches, shamans, and wisdom keepers still hiding under the title of coach, get ready to come out of the closet. Your choice of words begins to matter now. It's full alignment and authenticity all the way. Ah! I was like,
I know, you said it gave me chills, right?
Yeah, it gave me chills. Could you tell us more about this? Just
I can, sure. Before I answer, I would love to hear from you. When you say when it gives you chills, like, what was the first thing what happened for you when you read that?
Calling myself a massage therapist when I'm really a healer, but it's a safe thing to call yourself. Everyone knows what that is. They're like, oh, I can put her in that little box, and that's safe and good. And same with, and I also call myself a coach, but it's like, that's such a worn down, diluted word that can mean so many things. So it's like, that word I've never like loved either of those, to be honest. I've never been like, yes, I'm a massage therapist. Because it's just like, it's like a very small fraction of what I actually do.
So you say something very interesting there. You say, I've never really felt like, yes, I'm a massage therapist.
Yeah.
So you can already tell that your energy is not really behind that title, is it?
No, it never has.
So when you say I'm a healer, how does that feel in your body?
Well, like if I'm thinking of like 4 years ago when I met my boyfriend's family for the first time, if I'd been like, I'm a healer, like it's just, it can be off-putting to people. It sounds like really woo, which I am, but it's not like as socially acceptable to a lot of people.
Then that's exactly where it comes down to. It's not as socially acceptable. So this is the question where I mean, when you sent me a couple of questions saying, hey, this is what I would love to discuss, we'll see how we go. But that was the question. I was like, as are you still there?
It froze for a second.
Ah,
You were saying, so I lost you when you were like, this is the question. And then
okay, yeah. So I said, like, if we're gonna, like, this is the question that I really wanted to make sure that we would dive into a little bit, because it is so deeply what I stand for. As a leading psychic medium and oracle. And there's a reason I say leading psychic medium and oracle and spiritual mentor, because they can be two different things. They are combined, but I use them separately as well. And I so deeply stand for women reclaiming their psychic abilities and knowing that, you know what, yes, I have intuition, but what I've got is actually more than that. This is not just being intuitive. Like, I'm receiving downloads, guidance, I have visions, I hear things or see things. And I know it can come off as crazy if you say it that way, and yet you'll be surprised how many people, if you stand in your power with it, because that's the key thing, how many people actually open up to it. So I have, about a year ago, I started to really reclaim this myself. I've done it earlier, but online, but I've started to do it offline as well. Like, it's almost safer to do it online. But I've started to do it. Yeah, I started to do it here too. So I still remember that a year ago I was renting uh a holiday cottage, actually, an Airbnb. So I had a little chat with the owner of the Airbnb. She's like, so what do you do? And that's like, okay, here we go. It's like, I'm a psychic medium. And she's like, that's so cool. I was like, oh, oh. And she still follows me today.
That's
On
amazing.
Facebook, like, wanting to read everything that I do. So that kind of broke the ice, and that it kind of gave me this insight going, you know what? If I'm really gonna make this, if I really want to stand up for who I am and what I do and what my purpose is in this life and my soul mission, I cannot sell it to myself to hide behind any kind of other title than the one that I really feel is most aligned in my heart.
Yeah.
And so if it feels aligned to me to say I'm a psychic medium, then that's what I have to say. And I need any kind of discomfort, any kind of fear, any kind of unacceptability, I have to leave it with the other person.
Yeah.
I have to leave it with the other person. It's the only way that the people who need to be in my life and who I'm meant to serve will come to me, because if I'm not stepping up, if I'm not saying it the way I am called and feel called to say it, I will attract the wrong people. I will not stand out in the way that my soul clients need to find me.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started to do. And I really feel now, especially now, is this is a little prediction that I've been spreading around here and there. You know how the coaching industry 10 years ago, 15 years ago was almost non-existent.
Yeah.
No one had even heard of a coach. Now it's the most booming industry in the world, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But it's big.
Yeah.
Especially online. And so in that 10, 15 years, that industry has grown from almost non-existent to one of the most profitable ones in the world. There's a lot of shit ones in there. There's a lot of good coaches in there. It's the I'd like to believe that the quality is increasing, that more and more people are standing for that industry. I believe the same thing is going to happen with the mediumship industry. Like right now, I'm not saying it's non-existent, but there is still a stigma on it
Totally.
for a lot of people. And I also feel that a lot of there is, obviously it's so connected to the witch wound. It's so connected to burning times, like even more than the whole coaching industry. So for us, and I'm saying women, it's not just women, it's men too, but for us psychic oracles, mediums, intuitive, to stand up for this, it's like, oh my goodness, this is like our deepest core wound collectively that we have to go through together, but we've got to go through it.
Yeah.
And you see it now, the pressure is almost like it's on, like we have to rise into this and we have to reclaim this. And what the most interesting thing about this is that psychic abilities are as old, again, just as essential oils. Like the Oracle of Delphi is one of the most famous oracles, was how you say that, like Apollo, one of the biggest leaders, went to her for advice. Like oracles have been, they've advised people for centuries, and now all of a sudden it's crazy shit. I'm like, what? How is that possible? How is it possible that ages ago we were revered? I'm saying, but you know, the psychic abilities were revered, were I tend to say worshipped. I don't want to go into that. That's another fundamental sort of extreme. But they were respected. They were honored. They were tended to. They were cultivated.
Yeah.
People go to people who had those psychic abilities and developed that, who could communicate with the stars, the moon, the sun, the earth, the wisdom, the plants. They would go there for advice, like wisdom keepers, medicine women, healers, shamanism, like all of that. It's got it all.
Yeah.
How then is it possible now that we think that people will think it's crazy, that we think it's woo? This is another thing. Like every time we use the term woo, we're downgrading ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, what is woo? It's not woo, it's normal. It's the most normal thing in the world. We're all psychic. We all have intuition. We all know it. Even the most scientific people will tell you, and I've heard him, that they will have a hunch or they have a little idea. And I know that their scientific brain will say, I can't have an idea. I need to like scientifically prove everything. But it's impossible for us to do that. Like we have this feeling, this hunch. It's the most natural thing in the world. So the fact that we have branded it as something that's crazy is more in our heads than it actually is in the people, because there's so many of us who are actually really curious. And obviously I cannot prove this in the sense that I can't tell you whom is doing this, but I've heard it just a little bit too often to deny it, is that in top organizations, and I'm talking big leadership corporation level here, like tapping into quantum field and higher, again, higher realms that I mentioned, leaning into the support of psychic mediumship, it's been used by leaders. Like there's big leaders of big companies who behind closed doors do psychedelic medicine ceremonies and tap into the support of mediums and oracles. It's still there. They're just not telling us. They're just not telling anyone that they're doing it, but they're doing it.
I kind of have a feeling that there's a reason why, like, there are powers that be and there are corporations and there are entire like monopolies that would fall if people had access to that, and if people had access to healing. And like, to your point about science, there is so much overwhelming evidence of spontaneous healing. Like over and over and over again, this happens and we don't know why. And it just gets brushed aside. And healers are like diminished to what we're called like, it's called like alternative medicine. And it's not something to be taken seriously by the wider culture because I think it's a threat.
Yes, I have a theory about that. You want to hear it?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So, without going too much into detail about this, but yes, it can be a threat. But I also believe that everything that we perceive as a threat from the outside towards us is actually an invitation for us to rise more into our power.
Mm-hmm.
So if we feel them or it as a threat, or if we as healers and intuitives and psychics and oracles form a threat, or we see them as a threat to us, it's actually an invitation for us to rise even more into our power.
Well, I don't mean that
not by pushing them away, but by really saying, you know what, this is what I am, this is what I do.
Well, I don't mean that they, whoever they are, the powers that be, are a threat to us. I more mean like the opposite. Like we are a threat to the structures and the big business and I don't want to like name names.
Yes, no, I get that.
It's off YouTube, but like energy medicine and energy healing and herbal medicine and psychic ability, all of this stuff, it's, if this stuff really works, it'll be the end of a lot of very lucrative, businesses.
Yeah.
So I think why like the wider cultural narrative is kind of dismissive of it.
Yeah. It's there has been a lot of there's been you can say that there has been a strong case being made for this kind of information to, I wouldn't say it's been held back, but it's easier just not to share it. You know what, let's just not mention that kind of thing. Yeah, I know, I understand what you're saying. I haven't personally interfered with any such thing in my life yet. I'd like to keep it that way. Yeah. Like, you know what? I'm still innocent, joyful here. Let's go for this. And I also believe, again, just like with the coaching industry, I'm sure when the coaching industry started to rise, they were a threat to many people because it has to do with personal development and reclaiming your self-worth and the whole self-love industry. And yet it has become one of the most lucrative businesses in the world.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of creating a momentum and sticking with that and going through that. And I believe that this is why I added the leading thing. Like I'm a psychic medium and I've added leading psychic medium because I really want to inspire people like yourself or other people saying, you know what, just feel like what is a title that you really want to use for yourself.
Yeah, fuck it, I'm a healer.
Yeah, there we go. You're a healer. And again, it's a difference between masculine and feminine because massage therapist tells you what you do, which is a rather masculine approach, whereas healer tells you who you are, which is feminine approach.
Yeah.
And I believe that we are shifting more and more to figuring out who we are. We have to, because soon enough, it's not really gonna matter anymore what we do. People switch jobs all the time. Like, it doesn't matter what we do. It matters who you are. It matters who we are being, who we choose to be as a human being, as a woman, as a man, as a partner, as a lover in our relationships. Who are you in relation to yourself, to your partner, to your children, to your family, colleagues, businesses, teams, everything. Who are you? Are you able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, you know what? I like you. I like you. I like you. I like the way you show up for yourself. I like the way you show up. I like the way you handle that conversation. I like the way you handle that conflict. I like the way you handle it. I like the way you celebrate. I like the way you... Do you like yourself? Do you genuinely like yourself? That's the thing that the coaching industry brings. Now, that's a really powerful thing to learn. Yeah. And yet the coaching industry is booming. And so in 10, 15 years from now, we will see the mediumship industry really having regained her power, and
Mhm.
I'm so excited for it. And the reason I believe that this is going to be the case is because right now, if you look at the world, is
Yeah.
so many can only see the circumstances, and it scares them as hell. And I can't blame them. You know, it is scary to, if you just look at the world and circumstances, it's a
Yeah.
really scary place to live right now.
Mhm.
But if you have the abilities to look further than that and to trust your vision and your inner vision, the guidance you receive, then a whole new world will open, and you will actually see everything that's coming beyond that, on the other side of all the destruction and the chaos that's going on there. And you'll be able to see, you'll see that, and you'll tap into that, and it will inspire you, it will pull you forward, and you'll actually see that there's a lot of beautiful things coming our way, and you can get very excited about that. And this is what mediumship, leadership, oracles, mediums, everyone who taps into that, this is what we can bring to the world, is to have that faith, to lead with that, just like I shared my story at the beginning, having this vision and saying, I'm going to go and find this place. I need to trust this vision. I'm going to let this vision lead the way.
Mhm.
And it's funny, I'm doing the same thing again now with opening the higher chakra of the world, with the vision and the guidance that I've received there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is what I've seen. This is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna walk. And whoever resonates with it is more than welcome to join me. Let's go. Let's have fun. Let's go walk together. And yeah, well, I'm excited to see where we are in 10, 15 years from now. I really am. I really
I'm
am.
so excited too. And I feel like you are leading the way and you are opening up doors for other healers and psychics and mediums, and to really just own that. It's so, you're right. It's so important. And what are we doing? Like, what are we wasting time for? You know,
Thing, isn't it? Yeah.
we
And
need to own
I
it.
mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. And there are people in my world, obviously, too, especially my family. It's like,
Yeah.
they, I mean, they know, when you all of a sudden say I'm a psychic medium, they're people who don't know how to respond. And it always makes me giggle a little bit, and also feeling sorry for them, because I can see their awkwardness.
Yeah.
But that awkwardness and fear is not mine to carry. It's not. They're more than welcome to ask me questions if they want to know more. But, and it's not my intention to make you feel fearful or uncomfortable. I'm just being honest.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I do have another call coming up right
Yes.
about now. So I do want to ask
I
you.
thought I thought I made a beautiful circle back
It's
to my
perfect.
story
It's
at the
perfect.
start, and
Yeah.
then we rounded out.
Could you just tell us kind of briefly, how can we find you and plug into your work? And I will link all those links you sent me. I'll link them in the show
Yes,
notes.
yes.
And
Okay,
your
so the
Instagram. But
most important thing is that my website, NicoleOlsthoorn.com, will come back on again. We're having troubles with the URL, but right now it's NicoleOlsthoorn.podia.com. That will work. But if you on social media, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and you type in Nicole and the Celtic Goddess, you will find me. So you will find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and you'll see my happy face right there. And I would love to see everyone who resonates with what I've just shared. You're more than welcome in my world. It's fun over here.
thank you so much, Nicole. This has been
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to have these kind of conversations. Definitely. Thank you.
Yes. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night.
Okay.
Day?
Evening, yeah. It's
Okay.
9:30 p.m. right
All
now.
right.
So, all right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
lovely.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.